So with the trucks and wheels, in your kits, each of you guys got a set with just a gradient, like a gray or silver pair, and then a black pair. What you're going to need to do is try to figure on which one will work best based on the colors that you have, where they're going to be mounted, all right? And it's really just kind of up to you, preference. I mean, in this case, since I have a lot of light colors, I might choose to do the black ones, all right? They're going to go there and there. They're also going to be mounted exactly as you see them here. These points here, these are called the kingpins. And the kingpins always face in, because when you ride a skateboard, there are some bushings inside underneath this kingpin so that when you turn, they go side to side. So these always need to face in on traditional skateboards. Some longboards, this is going the other direction. But for this, the correct way to place them is here and here with the kingpins facing in. So the other thing, as the rubric says, is the choice of your truck's color creates strong contrast with the colors present in your design. So I decided to go with the black. You do not have to. You can go with whatever works depending on the colors that you have. Secondly, the wheels have been colored pencil shaded based on the demonstration with highlight in the centered horizontal. So if you take a look at the highlight on the trucks themselves, all right, you can see that there's that central highlight in the middle of the trucks, all right? So that's important to know because that's going to tell you where the highlight on the wheel is going to be. And lastly, you neatly cut the trucks out and mounted them correctly. So for mine, I decided I'm going to go with a color that is not anywhere near what I have on the deck. So in this area of the deck, if I put a color down, I don't want to put a color, for example, I don't want to use yellow or orange or blue because those colors are prevalent there. Same thing down here. I don't want to use any of these colors when I do the coloring for the wheels. So what I decided to do was use a color similar to part of my focal point. All right. So what I did was I used a green marker here. So I tried to find a green colored pencil that matched. And I looked at the gradient on the truck and I saw that the highlight would be right there through the middle. It's a horizontal highlight. And from the outer edge of the wheel up to that point, it's dark to light, then light to dark. Okay, just like you can see it here on the truck. Same thing on these. So it's going to go, there's going to always be that highlight horizontal in the center. So when you're doing these, what I suggest you do is work lightly first based on the highlight. So the highlight is going to be here. So I'm just going to take my colored pencil and go really, really light. Really, really light. Light pressure, and I'm just doing small little circles this way, or small little ovals. And then as I get closer to the end of the wheel, I can just add a little bit of pressure. Now, that's a very, very faint transition. It's always better to start off light and get darker. Always best to start off light and get darker. So now I kind of have a similar value throughout the wheel showing that highlight. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add pressure on the outer edges of the wheel and then lessen the pressure to create a color gradient just like I did on areas of the deck to create contrast and value. If I go outside the lines here, that's fine because we're going to be cutting out. I'll show you that next. All right, so I'll just lessen the pressure as I get to the highlight, and then over here, same thing. Dark pressure, slowly transition. You don't want any value to ever have a line and then a light value. You always want it to have smooth gradation as it transitions to the highlight. All right, so last wheel again, highlight in the middle, apply a light version of the color to the edge of the wheel, follow the highlight again, light version, and then I can increase pressure down here, get darker. And now I've got my wheels set up. Next step is going to be cutting them out. Now, when you cut them out, carefully cut just around the outer edge. All right, might take a little bit of time, but try to get as close as possible. And you guys know that when you cut into a corner, it's always best to change direction with the scissors. Since this is thin paper, okay, get to that corner there, and then I can come in this way. All right, just take your time cutting these. Get into this edge now. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to separate the two to make it easier for me to get down inside this corner. All right, so I've got my trucks and wheels cut out. Now what I'm going to do is, this is where and how they're going to be mounted. Okay, and again, on the procedure there, a little back, it showed a glue stick. So my suggestion is have a piece of scrap paper around. All right, just got a piece of scrap paper. This is the one that I did my coloring on. Remember to make sure that you're lining them up correctly. Just do one at a time. Now this is thin paper, so when you go to glue a stick on it, it has the possibility of ripping, so you don't want to do that. What I suggest is I would do it this way. All right, put a little glue on there. Hold it. Don't put too much pressure this way, because if I do and push, it's going to rip. So just do little bits, and if I have a piece of scrap paper behind it, it should be fine without having to rip anything. All right, and not have to worry about getting glue on my project because I have this piece of scrap paper down. Okay, now I've got my glue on the one. Remember I said the top of the deck is wider than the bottom, so I'm going to center this on that horizontal line. So once I get it set, see the line go right through the wheels, and I've got it centered left to right. And then I can just put a little pressure on it. And the truck is mounted correctly. Kingpin is facing in. I'm going to repeat the process down at the bottom. All right, so same thing, glue stick. Kingpin's facing in. Now again, on this one, the hip here of the board is narrower than the top. So the trucks and wheels on this are going to be just inside a little bit. You can kind of see where it's centered. All right, I'm trying to space it correctly. Don't want it to be off center, so just put it down before you finalize it and make sure that it is straight. Look at that, straight. And now it's all done. Got one last step, which is going to be, as you see, writing down legibly and neatly the principles of design that I used. I'm going to write them out here. So the principles that I used movement. And then how did I use movement? Created by using line to draw to the focal point. All right, I used movement created by using line to draw the attention to the focal point. So you can see the movement of the elements of art, in this case line being the element. I drew lines to draw your eye into the focal point. I used other things like color, which is the element, by creating emphasis. Used color, bright colors, versus dull. All right, I have some dull colors in here to create contrast. Ooh, there's another one. That's another element. Contrast. And again, contrast, size differences, and color differences. All right, you need to look at the list of elements that are in the slideshow, and you need to write, just like it says in the rubric, you need to write which are the most prevalent elements of art or most prevalent principles of art in your work, and you need to write them down and how you use them. Okay? All right. Once you're finished with that, it becomes photo submission time. And again, in this instance, it says that it says in the rubric, I want you to photograph this way. All right? Do not submit a photograph with a rotated skateboard. The reason I've done it this way is so that you can see it's all straight up and down. So that means your photo rectangle is going to be all of this. It also says in the rubric that you must have your name and period on there. Make sure that you have read over the rubric before you photograph and submit the assignment exactly as you see it here. Photograph is going to be a vertical photograph. You'll see it in the sample in the project.